tell you what, that weren't bad, was it? That new little intro there.
Very good.
Very good.
Hey, shout out to Gary for putting that one together. He's not with us at this moment in time. Hopefully he will join us in just a little bit. As ever, welcome back to the College Football UK podcast. I am your host, Fletch, and as always, I'm joined by a number of stunning gentlemen. This time, at this moment in time, we just have Nick and Egg. How are we all this week?
All good.
Egg, your face has disappeared. There you are. There you are. People listening on the audio-only version of this are like, what? So, we've had a busy week. College football is officially back as week 0. We had a few games this weekend, and we are going to have a little review, talk about those games, and we're, of course, going to also have a mention and look forward to some of the week 1 games, which I'm sure we're all very, very, very excited for. A full slate of football this weekend, and none of it's pre-season, all of it's competitive. I don't know about you lads, but I am. I can't wait, and my wife's devastated.
Yeah, I mean, it's football season, so let's rock and roll. It was good to have a trip out and all be together. Some of us,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a good day out in Dublin at the weekend. I don't think Gary would agree with me, but and yeah, it's football season, and let's rock and roll.
She's a football. Football is a beast. She's electric. She's here to stay. She's here for 4 months with the. I know we've got a bye week on the NFL this week before we start week 1 for the NFL, but football's back and we cannot wait. With that in mind, before we properly get going and talking football, I believe there has been a bit of news this week, and I know Nick and Egg have both got a couple of tidbits and whatnot. So tell us, Nick, what's the story this week?
Morning Glory. What's the story, Morning Glory? The NCAA have recommended eliminating the 15-day transfer portal in April. What that would mean is that you would just have your 30-day transfer portal in December rather than the 2. They're saying that they recommend it is because it would provide stability for the athletes and for the school program. So it's very rare for the council not to act on a recommendation from the NCAA. So while it won't affect this year, this Christmas period, it would be in effect come April next year. So there wouldn't be a transfer portal next year. So I think if they're going to do that, they need to make that decision quickly so that those that want to transfer can get the transfers done this December coming. So that was one decision on the NCAA. The NCAA have also suspended Oklahoma running back coach DeMarco Murray, not him, the other one, for 1 game for recruiting violations. He apparently made phone calls and texts that he wasn't supposed to make to 17 prospects over an 18-month period. So he's been given a 1-game ban, and it's probably a good job he's not part of Michigan, or he'd probably be banned for a year. Talking of Michigan, see, we're all rolling in. Talking of Michigan, the Netflix documentary dropped yesterday, Sign Stealer. I haven't seen it yet. It's going to be my weekend watch when my girls have gone to bed. But apparently, Fletch, I know you have seen it, but
yes,
in an interview with Connor Stallions, he refutes the allegation. He says he did not steal sign calling from any footage he wasn't supposed to have. And all he said is that he did successfully decode some signs from footage he was allowed to have.
Yes.
So it's a lot of he said this, she said that, but they said this. So I think it's the NCAA sounds like they're already leaning towards this guy's guilty. So we will see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a flow from one to the other to the other. 3 bits of news for you today.
Just roll with it.
I know.
That's all you got to do, mate. Just got to roll with it.
Star.
So, yeah, I watched the Michigan Sign Stealer documentary. I watched a bit of it last night and the rest of it today. But I don't want to give too much away and spoil it too much for you. But yeah, it is a lot of Connor Stellians absolutely refutes that he's done anything wrong. And like I say, all footage that he has used, he was supposed to have. And essentially just says it's not that he didn't do anything wrong. He was just better than everybody else at doing it. Which, like you say, it's a lot of he said, she said. Obviously, the NCAA have more, and parties involved are privy to a lot more of the information that we are, and we can only go off limited information. So I guess it's, do you think that he did it, or do you or do you think that he was just so good at that job that he was able to do it that well, better than everybody else? Which is interesting. I believe I don't know about you, but Egg is currently frozen on my screen.
He's doing a very good job of playing musical statues.
Yeah, Egg, are you with us? No worries. Well, I'll give you a second then. It's been an interesting one to see. And they have also, it's also worth mentioning as well, not just with the Michigan documentary, but the NCAA have given Michigan their notice of allegations in the sign stealing debacle, of which, they've mentioned obviously Connor Stellians, but basically said that Michigan did not do enough to curb the cheating, did not do enough, and that it was not a lone wolf. Connor Stellians just did this all on his own. Obviously, they've said that Sharon Moore was involved and that there are text messages in involving Sharon Moore and multiple people who were involved. So they're the allegations that the NCAA have put to Michigan. Obviously, Michigan are going to deny and try and fight the allegations, but whatever comes of it, comes of it. I guess.
I mean, this is a very. I mean, it's far more detailed, but there's quite a reflection on the Spygate issue that surrounded the New England Patriots. When they videotaped the Cleveland Browns, I think it was Cleveland Browns sideline. I should know that being a Pat. And obviously they were completely innocent, but found guilty just to make it look like the NFL were doing something. So I can understand when you're innocent and you're a complete victim of just being so good. I can understand Michigan's excuse.
Oh, we both can at the moment in other ways. So,
but I think there's no smoke without fire, is there? I'm not going to sit here and say they're dead guilty, but there's no smoke without fire. If the NCAA have hit allegations out, they've obviously got a very good reason to. They've obviously got something to back it up. But Egg obviously disagrees with me. But
you're right, absolutely.
Am I back now?
Yes, you're back.
Yeah, you're back now.
Magic. I just want to say thoughts and prayers with the gentleman that looked like he was in witness protection on the documentary. You've embarrassed the school.
I haven't seen it yet.
You've embarrassed. You have given us ammunition for the rest of our lives. So congratulations, there, mate. Also, you had a Wolverine on your desk as well. That's really good. I would just like to say that we didn't have this all came out before we played Sparty, who then relayed their sign signals via whispers and got spanked 49-0. This was in the season where apparently the wheels were going to fall off eventually, Rutgers come to the big house and took a 7-0 lead, and apparently the wheels were going to fall off then. Then we were a bit shaky, apparently, against Bowling Green, and everybody was saying that it was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, sign stealing, and we're still winning games. I just want to ask one question. Where's the gentleman that started the QB for Ohio State in that game where we won? Oh, no, he's at Syracuse now. So I think we just need to all calm down and realise Michigan's living rent-free in every D1 team's heads.
As I said before, in my totally objective and unbiased opinion, Ohio State are crybabies. That's just my totally unbiased opinion, speaking from pure facts and information and realism. Ohio State are crybabies.
After watching it, I'm actually embarrassed to actually be involved in a rivalry with Ohio State. I'm now trying to find a different school for us to be rivals with. Sparty aren't up to it. Notre Dame don't want to play us. Like, at least Minnesota, still want to play us every year. I think Minnesota might now be our rivals.
Rutgers, now is your time. Come on, Rutgers.
Rutgers, yeah. We can all go to New York, have a great time.
Yeah. I do believe that you did as well have a couple of little bits of news or a quip for us this week.
Yeah. Back to being impartial and obviously a proper podcast person. The University of Miami have secured a sponsorship deal with a vendor called I believe it's Mr. Meat. I've closed the tab. So they now have supplied a sponsorship deal with Mr. Meat. I'd like to thank the Sicko Committee podcast for leading on this. So now in the state of Florida, we have a stadium sponsored by Mr. Worldwide and a university sponsored by Mr. Meat. What could happen next in Florida? I don't know. Hopefully, I don't know, Mr. Men sponsor UCF or something. I don't know. That could be the next thing.
Well, so you've got the Mr. Men. We need a little miss now.
I was going to say some of the Mr. Men were on the field for FSU at the weekend, I think.
And on that note, that's a great segue. Yeah, on that note, we, as mentioned slightly earlier in the pod, we had a little trip to Ireland. Well, Nick and I did, and Gary did as well. We had a little trip over to the Emerald Isle to watch a little game of college football. Did you manage? I'm pretty sure you managed to watch it as well, on the TV.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start. I sit and wait for week 0 to come around every year, and every year that Dublin game doesn't fail to disappoint and ask more questions than answers. And this year I'm left with so many questions that it's unreal, and I don't even know if Gary's going to be able to answer them for me.
I don't. And I think Gary probably has a lot of those same questions, to be quite honest with you.
I think I'm probably going to word them very sarcastically compared to Gary, so that's the questions I'm going to ask you.
Fair enough. But Nick, I mean, I know I was with you almost all day, so it seems a bit of a daft question to ask. But did you Did you have a nice day? Please tell me you had a nice day.
I had a lovely day, thank you. The company was excellent. It was very enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, I was there last year for Notre Dame Navy, and I was there last year. I was there in a media capacity, whereas this year I was there in a fan capacity, and it was a very different feel. I was able to just sit back and enjoy the day and not worry about, ticking things off and doing this and doing that and making sure I was, where I needed to be. And so when the game was on, I was just able to sit back and enjoy it. And I think we said to each other once the game kicked off and we had those, one team went down one end and scored, the other team came down the other end and scored, and we were looking at each other going, I don't think our bets are going to hold up. And then there was barely any scoring for the rest of the half. And it's like, right, okay. And we're sat there trying to work out what scores we need and what needed to happen for our bets to come in. But it was a very enjoyable day. It was a very long day. I mean, I chose the day trip based on the prices of hotels being astronomical, but from sort of alarm on and getting up to climbing back in my bed, it was 22 hours, and I was really feeling it at the end of the day. So It was a long day. It was a thoroughly enjoyable day. I enjoyed the company. You were excellent, as was Gary and his carer and everyone else that we met. So yeah, I mean, I had a great day.
Yeah, do you know what? I was in my Detroit Lions Discord, a few of my friends in the States who had all tuned into College Game Day to see if they could see us, and they were like, "Where are you, Fletch?" And I'm like, "Well, you see, way over there." Well, I'm way over there. And after about 20 minutes, they're going, "No, Fletch, we can't see you." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm buggered off. Like, I'm not sticking around there. It's too busy." It was a brilliant atmosphere, though. And as someone who's done a couple of the NFL games before in London, I can't help but think of it felt like a much more authentic atmosphere. People were up for the football. They weren't up there to say, "I'm going to watch the NFL, and isn't it great? I'm going to go watch the NFL." It didn't feel similar to the NFL, which it's a forced atmosphere outside the stadium or anything like that. We didn't do the outside the stadium tailgate, so I can't comment on whether that was, forced or not. But it felt like such a natural, authentic atmosphere. The FSU fans, before the game and during the game, up until that last kick of the game, were brilliant. They really were. The atmosphere they created, just around Dublin was brilliant. The Georgia Tech fans as well created an amazing atmosphere, both outside and inside the stadium. It was just an overall, like you say, from start to finish, the company was brilliant that we had. But from start to finish, I think every single part of it was just a brilliant experience.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, sorry, Egg?
Sorry, watching College Game Day, I don't think you two would have seen this, but I'm now convinced that they don't like Pat McAfee. I don't know if you could all see that. The body language every time he spoke on the panel was just like, "Oh my god!" Like,
well, Kurt was getting it, wasn't he? Because
Kurt got it. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Egg. There was a guy early on before they opened up College Game Day. Because we were hanging around. If we'd wanted to hang around, we could have got into the front of College Game Day because it wasn't busy, was it, when we were first hanging around?
We
were right by the entrance gate.
There were people and things were happening,
but
it weren't
walking around
packed.
with a sign, and he was loving it.
There we go.
Yeah, man.
Oh yeah, They showed that one on. I think they showed that on TV. But Nick Saban was like, every time Pat McAfee spoke, Nick Saban just crossed his arms and sat back in his chair and didn't had a face of thunder.
I get Pat the Pat McAfee discourse, I think, is probably the correct word to use. I like him, and I think the energy that he brings is exciting. It's fresh, and the video of him when it was Georgia Alabama last year on College Game Day, leading the whole Georgia crowd in the Georgia chant, and then going, "Right, and now I'm taking Alabama this game," was
I love that.
It's world class. And I guess me, I'm quite a high energy person. I don't think Nick Saban is not your high energy Pat McAfee type person, so I get it. But Pat McAfee, I think, had also. I don't know. I think he's still drunk, probably from what we were seeing from him. He got in on the Thursday night. He was doing the Pat McAfee show from Mahon's, to which we were made aware that he'd had a fair few drinks, and then Saturday he'd had a few drinks, and then went out and kind of immersed himself into the Irish culture and the Dublin culture, and continued to do so. And just had a great time. So it's no surprise to me that he's probably still drunk. I don't think he can drive yet, put it that way.
He's probably still in Dublin.
Well, no, he's not, to be fair, because I have seen some clips on the Pat McAfee show this week, and he has made it safely back to the US. But yeah, and kind of somewhat moving on from the overall experience of outside. Like I said, we did stay around at the College Game Day thing for half an hour. We got some Go Irishes, we got some Go Blues. I got some dirty looks as well after they saw the big Maze M on my chest To which Nick told me I got some dirty looks. I may not have. He might have been just trying to wind me up. But we did the tailgate at Mahon's, which was brilliant, and the whole of Pro Football Island should be incredibly proud of themselves for the few months that they put together. Genuinely, they should be so proud of themselves. But the game, let's get on to the game and let's get on to the football. 10.5 point favourites, FSU sunk to a walk-off field goal. DJ, Florida State's new quarterback, did not look very impressive. We'll say that, to say the least. And yeah, what were your overall thoughts on the game? Let's actually get onto the football bit. What were your thoughts on the actual game?
It was good for FSU for all of one drive. They did everything that they needed to do, coming off of being snubbed for the playoffs and then obviously losing to Georgia. All the hype was that they should, although it's a very obviously new team, new players, the coaching staff, and there obviously are going to be guys on the roster that were there last year, that they should come in with a chip on their shoulder and that they should have something to prove to everybody. Mm-hmm. And I think from the first drive, they did that. They ran the ball down Georgia Tech's throat, and then to rub salt in the wound, then got a 2-point conversion from a trick play.
Yeah.
And then they had their foot on Georgia Tech's throat at that point, and instead of pressing home their advantage, they just rolled over and they let Georgia Tech bully them at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. DJ is the player we suspected he was. He's not been burnt at two schools for a reason. I try not to say that a quarterback's going to be bad. He could have gone there and the system could have favoured him. There is 1 in a million chance as a Cleveland Browns fan I clutch to the fact that QBs can be rehabilitated. But it's just, I said in my video last week that the wheels were going to fall off FSU, and even I'm incredibly surprised it fell off this quickly, to be honest with you.
Anything that you picked up on, Nick, as well during the game?
During the game, I mean, we talked about the fact that FSU weren't really getting away. These guys were supposed to be, like you said, they were 10.5 point favourites.
Yeah.
At some point they were supposed to stretch away, and they just couldn't get anything going. Every run was like a couple of yards, boom, hit the and they hit the Georgia Tech D line, which held fast. And you look at the running back, and FSU had 12 carries for less than 40 yards.
Yeah.
Now, between the two teams, the possession was about the same. It was, I think it was 30.5 minutes compared to 29.5. So they were fairly sort of middle of the road in possession. They were middle of the road in first down. So both teams seemed to sort of like possess the ball enough, but it just didn't seem to go anywhere. Every time FSU had the ball, they made a couple of yards and they just weren't advancing quick enough to get down the field, and they were holding on to the ball and just not moving it enough. Now, I was quite interested. We said about how DJ didn't play very well. He was 19 for 27 for nearly 200 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds half decent, but most of his throws were. We said this in the game, didn't they? They were lateral. They were sideways. Diagonal slants. He wasn't really throwing the ball down the field, sort of thing. It was sideways and give it to a wide receiver to run. I was quite interested. Mike Norwell, who's the FSU head coach, he said that DJ had, and I want to get this right so that I can quote this correctly. DJ had some solid plays and showed ability to deliver in crucial moments. They must have been the moments that I wasn't watching. because I didn't. I'll be honest. I watched the game and I didn't see him show ability to deliver in crucial moments. So that must have been when I was paying attention to the beer snake that was going round the stand and not the game, because I obviously missed that bit.
I didn't see any crucial moments for FSU in the entire game either. After the 2-point conversion, that was it, I think, wasn't it?
There was a great third down play. There was I think, was it a third or a fourth down play you made that was genuinely a very good play, and it was a great pass.
Was that the one that got PI?
No, because that was early. That was early in the first half. That was like around end of first, beginning of second quarter. There was a play towards, I want to say, in the third or fourth quarter. I'm pretty sure it was the fourth quarter as well, because obviously we were sat behind the end zone, and I know it was kind of heading in our direction, because FSU were attacking our end zone in the fourth quarter. There were I say it's a couple of plays. I'm not exactly turning around and saying, every QB is going to have at least 1 point in a game where they look okay, or there's going to be a pass that doesn't look as bad as the others. But yeah, I don't want to say nothing he did was good, but I want to throw this at you as well. So before we get on to this bit, you've started it, so now I'm going to finish it. We'll get on a bit of the box score. DJ was 19 of 27 for 193. Like you said, that's a 7.1 average. It's a 78.8 QB rating, no touchdowns. Florida State ran 31 times for 98 yards, which is an average of 3.2 yards. Their leading rushers were Roydell Williams, who ran 12 carries for 38 yards, 3.2 average, a touchdown, and a long of 10. Lawrence Toffoli for 8 carries, 32 yards, 4-yard average, a touchdown, and the longest of 28 yards. Which I believe was the touchdown, wasn't it? Yeah, first quarter.
Yeah, it was the one long run for the TD in the first quarter, and then
and he just
stuffed.
It was a great break as well, though, because I think it was a touchdown. You could tell it was going to be a touchdown when it was 10 yards away. He'd gone. As far as receiving goes, Florida's leading couple of receivers were Ja'Kai Douglas, 4 receptions, 85 yards, 13.8 average.
Most of those in the fourth quarter drive.
Malik Benson was 4 receptions for 39 yards, long of 19. Roydell Williams caught 3 for 31 yards, long of 15. Lawrence Toffoli again, 3 for 25. But as mentioned, there was a point in that game, it must have been the second at halftime, because it was a stat that was brought up on screen. DJ was 12 of 14, which is a great completion percentage. 12 of 14 is a fantastic.
1 yard or something.
Yeah. And I think it was like 98 yards, not too shabby. But his air yards on average were minus 0.1, which, as to the point you were mentioning there, Nick, they were slants. They were passes to running backs in the backfield. They were safe throws that didn't go very far, and most of the yardage came from Yak, which again, Gary, by the way, hello. And Gary, I know you even mentioned and noticed as well.
Yeah, it's just they couldn't throw forwards. They didn't either want to throw forwards or try to throw forwards. It was just so one-dimensional. It was terrifying to watch from the sidelines. I mean,
the one time that they did as well was in the second quarter. I think about midway through the second, took a deep shot, and it ended up getting called for a PI. Florida State got the first down, 15 yards, as a DPI. But I don't know.
I think in the pros that would have been called an uncatchable pass. That didn't look to me like
take the DPI. I will say you take the DPI out of it. Let's say the DPI doesn't happen. Probably wasn't going to catch it, and he looked a bit overthrown.
Yeah.
From where, I mean, again, me and Nick, we were sat. It was like in front of us as that happened.
It was almost thrown straight at you.
Yeah.
So it'd have been harder for you.
I think we would have had a better chance of catching it, to be quite honest with you.
From my angle where I was sitting square on, definitely an overthrow pass. The receiver
But-
had no chance of catching that.
It's a bit like sometimes the angles you get in a stadium, you can't quite fully tell. Whereas I think the angle you had from the side on probably would have had the kind of the drop of the ball maybe a little bit better. But going on to Georgia Tech's box score, Haynes King was 11 of 16 for 146 yards, 69.7 quarterback rating. So he had a worse quarterback rating than DJ. Georgia Tech's rushing stats, Jamal Haynes had 11 carries for 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. Haynes King had 15 carries for 54 yards. Chad Alexander was 7 for 41. And then there was a couple, with 1, 9, 10 yards. The receiving for Georgia Tech, Malik Rutherford was 4 receptions, 66 yards, no touchdowns. Chase Lane was 2 for 31. Eric Singleton Jr., 2 for 19. Jamal Haynes, 2 for 16. And Avery Boyd, 1 for 14. There was, however, 2 fumbles by Haynes King in the game.
Well,
Both of
were
which
they
were
by
recovered.
him?
Well, they go under his box score. So
That's
I'm
that's
going
harsh
off the
because
box
one
score.
of them was a shocking snap.
One of them was the shocking snap, and the other one was the handoff where I think he pulls out. It's the read option, but I think he pulls out a bit too late. Running back's kind of already got it, and it just kind of falls on the floor.
Yeah.
But he managed to. That was the one. No, it was the drop.
That was the one where the offensive lineman recovered that one, even though there were like 8
and it was the
Florida
bad
State
snap.
players on it.
The bad snap where he
was
managed to
on
pick
the
it up and
final
try and get
drive.
out, but got tackled in the backfield. Yeah. As Egg mentioned, it was quite the. Let me go. Try to find the box score. 7 tackles for loss by Georgia Tech in comparison to FSU's 3. Sacks, Georgia Tech had 1, FSU had none. Georgia Tech made a total of 63 tackles. Florida State made 55. And that's a kind of where it ends, really, as far as box scores go. Obviously, Florida State, 2 field goals, including a long of 59 yards.
Just at a half, yeah.
And an extra point. And David Shanahan, by the way, I want to shout out David Shanahan, the hometown boy from Ireland, punting for Georgia Tech, had 2 punts, 93 yards that's a 46.5 yard punting average.
He got lucky on the first one, let's be honest. He shanked the first one.
Yeah.
Shanked the first one, got a lucky bounce. The second one, he got it better. But
It was throughout the whole game, it was a very 50-50 game. It started off so quick with one team going down and scoring, the other team coming straight back, and we were like, right, okay, this is going to be quite a good game. And then it sort of petered out after that fast start. But it was like, at no point did you think, this game's going to run away from somebody. Everyone was in, both teams were in the game, and both teams, and it was going to come down to quite possibly whoever had the ball last.
Yeah.
And I don't think. Yes, FSU based on their rankings should have probably, and based on the stats and the bookies, yes, FSU should have probably won. But there's a saying over here in thing: games aren't played on paper. They're played on the field, and you've got to put the effort in. Now, I want to give one of the stats that you didn't read out, Fletch, that I will say. Georgia Tech head coach Brent Key, he is making a habit of beating top-ranked teams season after season. In 2022, while he was interim coach at Georgia Tech, he beat 24-ranked Pittsburgh and 13-ranked North Carolina. In 2023, last year, as the full head coach, he beat number 17 Miami and number 17 North Carolina. Why there were two 17s at the time, I'm not sure. And this year he's gone and beat number 10 FSU. So
didn't he also push Georgia last year really close? Wasn't there?
They did. And so he's starting to put on his resume. He's putting these big teams, and he's starting to take some scalps, and he keeps doing that. He's going to get noticed, and he's not going to be at Georgia Tech too long if he keeps doing that. So
no.
Like Gary just said, they pushed Georgia for like half a game, so close that it could have gone either way. So, I think he deserves his recognition as well.
Absolutely. Just want to go through one more little bit as well, just on the game, and that'd be the drives and how the drives ended, which I do think as well. So you had a touchdown. FSU started the game, touchdown, 2-point conversion to go 8-0 up. Then Georgia Tech responded with a touchdown and an extra point, 8-7. Then it was a turnover on downs for FSU, a punt for Georgia Tech, a field goal for FSU to bring it back up to 11-7, touchdown for Georgia Tech to bring it to 11-14, end of half. FSU got the field goal. Yeah. End of half where FSU got the field goal to end it, make it 14-14 going into the half. A walk-off field goal to end the half as well, by the way. We've got 2 walk-off field goals. Can't go wrong. Then Georgia Tech opened the second half with a missed field goal. FSU punt, Georgia Tech punt, FSU punt, Georgia Tech touchdown. That's 21-14. FSU responds straight away with a touchdown. 21-21, and then Georgia march up the field with 6:33 to go and get a game-winning field goal. Those were the drives that we had. I don't know why I thought this. I thought we had more turnover on downs on FSU side. I had it in my head that we had 2 turnover on downs, not 3.
I'm sure there was a couple of their drives that they went for it on 4th down and didn't get.
There was a few 4th down attempts. I think there were.
There was
a few.
on the last. I think there were a couple of successful 4th down attempts on the final drive to get the TD. But I was pretty sure that there was also a couple of drives that were stopped by Georgia Tech. I remember a pass that went out. Another very safe short pass that got absolutely blown up. I thought there was at least a couple. I mean, interesting if that's the box score is the box score. You can't imagine that they've got it wrong. I mean, that's their job and that's the professional doing that. But I have a recollection of at least a couple of drives being stopped by Georgia Tech.
I do want to mention one big play that happened, by the way, and it was on Georgia Tech side of the ball, straight after the fumble. And they were on 3rd and long.
15-yard screen or whatever it was.
13, I think they were behind the line of scrimmage, 3rd down. Haynes King made one hell of a big play. And I think for a lot of people as well, though, you kind of looked at that and went, okay, Georgia Tech aren't going to go away here. Georgia Tech, they are for real. And the only other play that really frustrated me during the game was right at the end of the 3rd quarter. Haynes King broke out of a pass rush. Managed to break free.
Dead to rights, wasn't he?
Yeah. Get a decent gain on it. Was brought down at the 1-yard line right in front of Nick and I. Then they decided to end the bloody quarter when we had a 1-yard touchdown right in front of us, and it went all the other way down, which was a bit frustrating. Sorry, Nick, I did cut you off there though as I went to start talking. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to ask Gary, because I said it was something that I thought about asking him at the weekend, but he did look a little bit shell-shocked. And something I wanted to ask you.
It was the cost of that W.H. Smith sandwich.
It was after the chocolate hit the floor.
He was upset Burger King was closed.
Don't. What is going on with that? Actually, we'll come back to that. What is going on with Dublin Airport shutting everything at 9 o'clock so everyone goes to the airport to eat and there's bugger all open? What was that all about?
I don't know.
Anyway.
Back on my train of thought. Yeah. I mean, we've just talked about there how the game was very 50-50. It was very balanced possession. Because me and Fletch were talking in the third and the fourth quarters, as you could see how the game was going, and it was one of these in the balance games. What I wanted to ask you is, at what point did you realise that towards the end of the game, FSU were in trouble?
Oh, I realised by the second quarter.
It was just one of those where if they put their foot down, they could have blown away Georgia Tech in that middle period of the game. So second, third quarter, they could have blown it away. But they just seemed to not want to step on the gas pedal.
Yeah.
And they let Georgia Tech hang around. They let them hang around, and they got bit. They got bit at the end. And it was just one of those that I was there as a fan enjoying the sport. You were there as an FSU fan watching that. At what point did you start to think this is not going well?
And then it was that period, we talked about the fast start where it's like everyone went up, down, scored, bang, bang, bang. It's great. It's going to be one of those open games. And then instead of just Georgia Tech did a great drive, worrisomely, gashing the vaunted defense of FSU, and as that continued, even though they weren't scoring, but Georgia Tech continued to run the ball with ease. It didn't seem to be an awful. The defensive line was getting bullied, and I was like, "Hang on, this is supposed to be, the best defensive line in college football and all that sort of stuff that we heard," and that was looking worrying. But it was as I say, it was noticeable from like late second quarter that either the coaches didn't trust DJ wasn't there, something wasn't right, and all we were doing was running the ball. And Georgia Tech knew that we were just running the ball, and Fletch just given a box score about 12 attempts at 2 yards an attempt or whatever else, because Georgia Tech just knew it was going to be a run, and even if it wasn't a run, it was going to be a screen or it was going to be a dump off 1 yard pass. It was just there was no threat, and from that late second quarter where they, as you say, the game was scrappy and bitty and it wasn't really going anywhere. That is when college teams usually go, the better teams, and I'm going to air quote the better teams, the ones that tend to be ranked and the ones who tend to be favoured, they take those moments where the other team isn't quite functioning and score. Even if it's a duff drive, it doesn't get, but they get in the end zone. And Florida State weren't doing that. They weren't getting there. They were punting, or just drives were just dying out. And the fact that they had to, they celebrated getting the long field goal to tie it up at half time so big. It was like, okay, that's not, you shouldn't be celebrating managing to claw your way back to level. And yes, we were favoured by 10, 12 points and whatever else. And it's week 0 and all that sort of stuff. But it just from that point, it was like, unless, and as I say, the turnover there came out. If he came out in the third quarter and bombed it up and down the field, let it go, then I might have felt a lot easier. But they came out in the third quarter and did exactly the same thing. And Georgia Tech went, well, "This is all you've got. We kind of know what we're doing, and we've got this."
Yeah.
So it was that sort of period, late second, early third, where FSU, as you say, Nick, didn't put their foot on the accelerator, didn't try and put the game to bed, or couldn't. And whether or not it was a couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't, I'm not entirely sure. And I'm sure there's a lot of soul searching in Tallahassee trying to understand, should they have opened the playbook up? Was there something?
Yeah.
And what was quite telling was that even by the third quarter, FSU Twitter was right, we've seen enough, get number 11 in. Says it all on week 0, right?
Yeah.
I just want to, I'm conscious of time, and look, we can probably speak for hours and hours about this game. Double so because we were, especially as we were there. So there's so much more to talk about and so many different things. There are a couple of points I want to mention before we want to get Egg back involved as well. You are sat there listening so patiently and wonderfully there, Egg. I am
well, he's dropping in and out when he gets bored. Yeah. He's like, "I'll come back."
I don't know what this app's doing. It's just breaking, but yeah, I'm in and out every so often.
So we'll get you back in a second to cover a couple of the other games that happened in week 0. But just give us one more second. Well, you can also jump in. But I want to throw back to last week, and one thing you said there, Gary, was how it was a great segue as how the game started the way it did. FSU go down, touchdown, 2-point conversion on a trick play. Georgia Tech go straight down, touchdown, and everyone was sat there telling everyone, going, great, it's going to be one of those games. The only person in the stadium who wasn't was Nick, because he looked at me as that second touchdown especially went in and went, I bet the bloody under. This is terrible for my bet. I bet the under. And it's a nice segue.
The worst thing was all week, bet the over.
And this is why it's a good.
I was going to bet the over.
This is why it's a good. This is why it's a good segue into last week, because we spoke about this in length, probably more than anything else on the podcast. Did we take the over or under? And you weren't sure, but we were leaning towards over. I was personally leaning towards over. The under came through. Obviously, Florida State didn't win that one. I said Florida State would win, but Georgia Tech would cover the spread. Well, Georgia Tech covered the spread, but they also won. So I was kind of... I also took the over, though, so I ended up losing that one. But another thing I wanted to throw back to on last week's episode, just as a final point, was I know we've got Gary, who's an FSU fan. This is it's the main focus, the main place we were looking. We all wanted to see how the top 25 ranked team was going to do, the top 10 ranked team was going to do, especially after last season. But we mentioned that, and I'll go through back again on a couple of stats. Haynes King, 2020, he made 2 completions of 4 attempts, a touchdown and an interception. In 2021, he was 22 completions off 35 attempts, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. 2022, 104 of 187, 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And in 2023, he was 226 of 367, 27 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Now, the one thing we said, and this is why it's relevant, is before on the podcast we said the number one thing Georgia Tech need to do is get Haynes King playing clean football. Even last year, 27-16, that is not a good ratio to have a worse than 2-to-1 ratio of touchdowns to interceptions. You need to get him playing clean football, and against a defense like FSU's, you need to be squeaky clean. Squeaky clean.
Allegedly good defense.
Oh, yeah, allegedly.
Yeah.
There were a couple of plays where I said to you at the time, Nick, and we said at the airport afterwards, Gary, a couple of plays where we kind of went, I think he held on to it a little bit too long there. On a couple of them, he did manage to break out. You look at some of the ways he escaped the pocket. You look at the one where, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Marvin Jones Jr., to be fair, coming off the end, had him by the foot, and he managed to escape and played the quick pass over to the edge. That's what they did. They established the run game early, made the run game a credible threat, which opened up lanes for Haynes King to play cleaner football. They did that brilliantly. I just wanted to throw back to that and just get your thoughts on that as well. We said last week, Haynes King, key to it, clean football. And I think they did exactly that.
Yeah, and from an FSU perspective, the key was to nullify the run and force the pass. Because yes, you potentially get gash for a couple of plays, but you're going to get the ball. At some point he's going to throw, he's going to have a bearing, he's going to see ghosts or whatever else you want to say. He's probably going to throw a couple of interceptions. But they were not able to nullify the run. They were 4 or 5 yard guaranteed runs every time they put the ball on the ground, which then allowed them, as you say, to play clean football. Haynes King was the better QB on the day. Stats might say otherwise and whatever else, but from the eye test, he was the better QB on that field. And managed his team and got his team in the best positions to win the game.
I would say as well, just on that as well, yeah, he played clean football, but both quarterbacks I felt played safe football. You talk about DJ passing throws into the slants and into backfields where no one's near your receivers and getting yak. A lot of Haynes passes as well were into safe hands, into safe spots where they managed to get a bit of separation. Only a couple of times did I see a pass from Haynes King and think, "Ooh, fair enough." Like, well, go on. And he fizzed a couple in, but that was about it. So, clean football was what we asked for. Clean football was what we got. On that note, we do want to touch on, because there were a couple of other games that weekend, and we've been going on for a while now. Montana State,
Yes,
the FCS score, beat FBS New Mexico 35-31. Nick, you called that last week. I doff my cap to you, sir. SMU survived the scare. The ACC New Boys survived the scare against Nevada to win 29-24. And Delaware State finally made it to Hawai'i, only to get their backsides kicked all around the field in a 35-14 drubbing. First thing I'm going to do, because again, you've been sat here so patiently, Peg. I'm going to, you get your reward now. You said you cheered. Talk to us about Montana State, New Mexico there, my friend.
Called it as the game of the week.
So, I always say this every year. I'm only going to watch the Dublin game on week 0. And then the second game starts, and then I end up watching the full slate. I didn't make it to the Hawai'i game this year. So I watched a ridiculous amount of football. Montana State were pretty appalling in the first half, really. New Mexico looked sharp. They kind of came up the blocks, all guns blazing. Montana State weren't really the side I thought they were going to be. They kind of misfired a little bit. Tommy Mellott wasn't really impactful, and New Mexico kind of, I don't want to say took the P a little bit, but they did. They were running trick plays, and they kind of did rub it in Montana State's face. Then all hell broke loose, and there was a 55-mile-an-hour wind behind Tommy Mellott, and he went absolutely ballistic. And Montana State came back and won. I turned off before the final touchdown went in because I was convinced that I'd made a duff call. But yeah, I think Montana in FCS are legit. New Mexico leave a lot to be desired. I don't think New Mexico are going to really be worrying the top half of the Mountain West. And Montana State, I think, are probably going to be higher than 4th in the FCS rankings come the end of this week or next week. Tommy Mellott, I think, could make the step up to FBS as well. I'm not sure if he's a senior or not. Devin Dampier was all right. He's threw for 172 yards, 1 touchdown. Tommy Mellott threw for 205 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was kind of a game of two halves, really. It was kind of a very typical early season game. But yeah, I think Montana State are going to be pretty legit in FCS as well. They're a team I'm looking forward to watching a bit more of in FCS.
Again, I was going to throw to the box score here, just a little bit the box score though, not as much as obviously we did for FSU GT. By quarter, so New Mexico went 10-0 up in the first quarter. The second quarter was 14-14, so they went into the half 24-14. New Mexico went up, won the third quarter 7-0. So they were 31-14 up, and then that whole fourth quarter was 21-0 to Montana State.
That was a point
into stadium.
Yeah, that was a point I was going to make, that both in that Montana State game and in the SMU game, both teams that ended up winning had to come back from big deficits. You know, both teams left it late, and both teams had to put. You know, we talked just then about how FSU didn't put their foot down and charge away from Georgia. Both these teams left themselves in big holes and they really needed to put the points on the board to recover, and they did. I mean, New Mexico covered the spread in losing. Well done to them. Nevada weren't expected to be that close to SMU either. So they were 2 games there where the losing team kept in the game, were in the game, and made the winning teams work for their W.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of football you like to watch on the TV.
Yeah. That second half as well, by the way, I know I said that UNM won, New Mexico won that third quarter 7-0, but that was 3 plays into the second half, a fumble return touchdown. And then, again, when Montana State had a drive, they went 10 plays, turnover and downs. The New Mexico miss a field goal, touchdown for Montana State. New Mexico then miss a second field goal. Where they go? Then Montana State score a touchdown. Downs, missed field goal, touchdown, missed field goal. Montana State on downs again after 6 plays. New Mexico punt after 3 plays. Montana State touchdown. New Mexico punt after 6 plays. Montana State touchdown. So, other than a fumble return touchdown, it isn't even like Montana State had that third quarter. Not that third quarter, but that whole second half. Even when you factor in 2 missed field goals from New Mexico, which I'm guessing is also where the storm played a huge part in that.
Yeah, cameras fell off of the gantry. Like TV cameras fell off and were like almost in the crowd at one point. There's pictures of it. New Mexico are in a world of pain. I've just seen their schedule as well. This was probably their most winnable game out of the opening first few weeks. So I think that they're probably going to be the bottom feeders or close to bottom feeders in Mountain West.
At Arizona, at Auburn, versus Fresno State, at New Mexico State, versus Air Force, at Utah State, at Colorado State, versus Wyoming, at San Diego State, Washington State, then at Hawaii. Yeah, that's not pretty.
New Mexico State are in a worse shape than them, so that's probably going to be their first win of the season.
Brilliant. Again, Nick, you called that last week, so again, one more time, I doff my cap to you, sir. SMU Nevada.
I've got a stat for SMU Nevada, and I don't mean to rub it into Gary, but this is my favourite stat of the weekend. There were 22 penalties in this game, 11 each, which come to 206 yards for penalties, which is more yardage than DJ managed to throw the entire game in Dublin.
Yep. As soon as you said 206, I was like, I knew where that was going.
We're trying to keep him on a level keel. Don't knock him off now.
I saw on social media earlier and I was like, oh, that's the stat of the weekend.
Listen,
that is it.
I've already got this now, and we've got a verbal contract that we can via WhatsApp that we can keep that intro. We're all right to wind Gary up now. We're safe.
Yeah. We're all good.
We've got verbal.
We're all good.
We've got a written
quite frankly,
contract.
I deserve it. I mean, I would if I came on here and I didn't get ripped to that week 0 performance, then I'd be very surprised.
Slight disclaimer.
I was worried about you.
Me and Fletch are probably opening ourselves up to a world of pain because we could go to Fresno at the weekend and we could probably lose an FSU. So in next week it could be all coming back to the chickens could be coming up to roost.
It's just that it just so happens that my team have been the first ones out of the block to be able to be up there to be shot at. This you could all be open to exactly this.
Gary, we've not done this in a while. We've not done this in a while. Can you guess what I'm about to do? Speaking of Fresno State,
you're about to do your trivia,
no.
aren't you?
Speaking of Fresno State, Michigan,
I missed the trivia.
No, I didn't do one this week. I've let you off this week. Speaking of Fresno State, Michigan, we'll get back to that later. We've not done that in a while. We'll not come back to something later in a while. That wasn't an accident to come back to. So
we'll come back to that.
Finally, Delaware State and Hawai'i. Would anybody like to make any comment on Delaware State, Hawai'i before we get on to previewing the weekend?
I suppose you feel for Delaware.
I think it's just a case of Hawai'i State set their stall out and went for it, and Delaware State were barely had time to catch their breath. I mean, literally, their plane landed, they played the game, and the plane took off again because they were non-existent on the field. I don't know whether the travel and everything got to them in the end, but that last quarter they were just out on their arse and blown away. So I can't remember whether I said Hawai'i State would win or not, but it certainly wasn't close. It was the one game. It was the one game of the weekend where it wasn't close. It wasn't contested. It was all over.
Yeah. And hang on, let me just get this up now. Yeah. Hawai'i had gone 14-0 up in the first quarter, and then it was over from there, pretty much. Yeah. Over from there.
Egg, you had something?
Yeah, you have missed a game. And I'm probably the only person in the UK that was watching this game. McNeese played Tarleton State as well, which was very good. I'd highly recommend going back and watching the highlights of that.
Did mention that on the podcast last week as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
We did. I don't know why, by the way, we just did, though. We definitely did. I remember Tarleton State.
I had had a couple of drinks by this point, and McNeese did confuse me because they've all got McNeese on the back of their jerseys where their names usually are, and I was like, that's not really, that guy's got the same last name as the school, and then it took 3 or 4 plays for me to register that actually they just all have McNeese on the back of their jerseys.
McNeese only enroll people with the last name McNeese.
Yeah.
One family.
Disturbing. What a family. Yeah. It's like, hang on, wait, that's BYU that do them all.
Tarleton are also it's their second year at D1 level as well, so it's nice to kind of see guys making the step up from D2 into D1, and I think they're ranked as well in FCS. Team to watch.
Okay, so with that being said, are we ready to go on to previewing this weekend's games? I know we've all had a little think. Well, okay, so let me get them up. This week, we've got our top 25. We'll have a look at some of the... I'll kind of mention the AP top 25.
A lot of games. There's a lot of games. It's proper. It's a full slate.
Yeah, this is a full slate.
22 games or something.
Yeah, I have got the list of all FBS schools that are involved in games this weekend, and I ain't scrolling through all of it. So I'll mention the top 25. And then I'm pretty sure we can come up with a couple of things out of that, and then we've all got our own conferences. Sam has lovingly sent a couple of games he wants to look out for in the SEC and in the SBC. So I will keep an eye. I will mention them as well for him. But yeah, this week's top 25, West Carolina will take on NC State. Murray State are going to take on Missouri. Lindenwood will take on Kansas, and Southern Utah will take on Utah. All of those are on Friday, the 30th of August, between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. GMT, by the way, GMT. Then on Saturday, at midnight, we get treated to Temple, Oklahoma. Then at 5 p.m., which I cannot wait for, that 5 p.m. slot on Saturday, we have Clemson at Georgia. That is going to be a cracking game.
What a week one game. Oh.
Penn State take on West Virginia. Illinois State take on Iowa. Chattanooga take on Tennessee. South Dakota State take on Oklahoma State. The mighty, mighty Akron Zips take on the minnows of Ohio State. Colorado, sorry, I shouldn't be bigging up the MAC, should I, at the moment? I'm all
no, you shouldn't.
Conference USA. But they are the mighty Akron Zips either way. Colorado State will take on Sam's Texas. The University of Miami will take on the University of Florida. All of them kicking off between 5 p.m., 5:45 p.m., 7 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. GMT. And then midnight on Sunday. I know we're getting through a few here. Western Kentucky take on Alabama at midnight. Furman, Ole Miss. UT Martin, Kansas State. Idaho take on Oregon at 12:30. The mighty Notre Dame only go over to
Irish.
Texas and A&M, don't they?
That's a bit of a banana skin, I think, that one.
Then my good friends over at Fresno State take on your national champions, starting the defense tour, Michigan.
Without the cameras.
New Mexico look to rebound against Arizona at 3:30 in the morning. Don't know if anyone's staying up for New Mexico, Arizona. Then on Sunday night, midnight, USC take on LSU. Can't wait for that one. And finally, looking for a rebound,
Tuesday morning.
Boston College.
Tuesday morning.
Boston College at 12:30 on Tuesday morning will look to go and do the funniest thing ever, as Florida State will look to bounce back as they take each other on. Standout games that aren't Clemson, Georgia.
The LSU game.
LSU, USC.
Or the Florida, Miami. Just because it's interstate and it's interesting to see, Miami are going to be in and around the ACC. Florida, one of the
North Carolina, Minnesota, I think, as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Be an interesting one as well.
And I hate to be the person that's going to say this, but North Dakota State against Colorado. Not because it's Colorado, because North Dakota State are very good. And I think that could be a massive banana skin and a wake-up call for Colorado.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I looked at the games a little differently. A lot of those games have got one top 25 team against a non-25 team, but obviously there are those three big games where they're top ranked versus top ranked. So I just based my choice on the lowest rank total number. So, for example, game of the week: Clemson at 14 versus Georgia at 1, total of 15. Game of the week.
Yep.
I also had Notre Dame at 7, ranked against Texas A&M at 27. You've got USC and LSU. I didn't write them down, but so
it must be in the 20s, 20 somewhere.
Yeah,
same sort of region.
They were. That's how I decided to rank the game, and just because the more top 25s you get playing each other, in theory, the better the game should be. So that's just how I judged the game. So Clemson and Georgia is by far and away the best game of the weekend. But I decided that what will get my viewing on Saturday night, Sunday morning is the Fighting Irish versus Texas
I'd be
A&M.
surprised if you didn't say that, quite frankly.
Well, yeah. So,
yeah, I would have loved to have heard. Now I love my Notre Dame, but actually I want to watch Furman. Ole Miss. I want to watch Furman.
So, yeah, don't expect me to be able to tell you anything that went on in any of the other games other than Clemson, Georgia, and Notre Dame, Texas A&M. That's it. That's what you're getting from me next week.
Do you know what? That's absolutely fine, Nick. Where has it gone now? You're absolutely right, though, with Georgia Clemson. On paper, that's the best game of the week. But as you have alluded to already, a game is not played on paper.
No.
Every year in the NFL, and college football is no different, and in fact can be more so like this because of just the way it works. Every year in the NFL, we have a team where we're like, they're Super Bowl hopefuls. They've got a really good chance of making it to the end, and then they end up picking up in the top 5 or something similar. They're just outside the top 5 in the draft because they were They were terrible and just couldn't make it work that year. There are going to be teams in the top 25 at the moment that just don't make it click. Some of them may be obvious ones who we maybe thought maybe shouldn't be in the top 25 anyway. Some of them might be up there in the top ones, Florida State. Some of those may or may not. And we won't know until week 1. We won't know until week 2 how they... There's banana skin games. How do they rebound? They don't. Momentum killers. So, yeah, on paper, Georgia, Clemson. But if Clemson just aren't actually a good team this year, we won't. We'll find out that. Probably. Georgia's probably not the best test for them. We'll find out in week 2. It's just one of those. Preseason predictions are fool's gold in many ways. We say that after we've just done a preseason awards ceremony on Hurdle the Line.
Who was that by 2 touchdowns there, was it? Did you say Fresno State by 2 touchdowns?
It could be Fresno State by 2 touchdowns. Georgia, I said Georgia by 2 touchdowns. If it's Fresno State by 2 touchdowns, then you have every right to take the mick because I was a Boise State fan, guys. That's gonna sting for me in so many ways.
So yeah, there's no episode next week if that happens. There's just no episode.
Just pulling the plug. Yeah.
I'm just gonna wait for college basketball to start, and then I'll see you all like in March.
So
March Madness. Yeah.
Come find me. I've deactivated my Twitter account. I've deleted WhatsApp off my phone. Try me if that happens.
It's going to be so fun after rivalry weekend.
I will give the AAC some love, seeing as they're the division that I'm supposed to be paying attention to. I say supposed to. I am actually paying some attention.
He is to be fair.
There are no inter-division games yet. I think the earliest inter-division game is like week 4, I think I saw, unless I missed one earlier. But so when I was like trying to pick an AAC game, which was interesting, again, in a similar way to how I did the rankings, I just picked at what AAC teams have got a game against a top 25 ranked team, and is it likely to be a blowout or is it not? I mean, I don't expect it to be close, but competitive would do. So for the AAC game to watch, I've gone for Temple at Oklahoma. So that's my game to watch, featuring one team from my division.
Who have Tulane got? If you don't mind me asking. Do you know? Or Memphis?
Hang on, I've got the list here.
It's refreshing for me here. Tulane take on Southeast Louisiana.
South Louisiana.
And Memphis. North Alabama.
Memphis are at North Alabama.
Yeah, I only ask because they were those two teams were our predictions for conference winners. All 4 out of 5 of us went with Memphis, and Nick said, "Forget all of yous, I'm going with Tulane." It's the only reason I ask.
Went out there.
It's just
went out there with the Tulane. Yeah.
Gary, you have the Mac.
I have the Maction.
What Mac
now, obviously,
you've already suggesting this week?
You've already mentioned, obviously, Akron, Ohio State. That's going to be one of those games that we've talked about before.
Well, no one cares about Ohio State. We've got obviously the mighty Akron Zips, but Ohio State bring that game down.
You also have the other Ohio playing against Syracuse, which could be a bit of a banana skin for Syracuse there. But I'm calling Miami, Ohio at Northwestern as a one to watch here. Just because the Miami, Ohio just dropped the nicest uniform on Twitter, if you've seen it. Absolutely gorgeous outfit at Northwestern. Chance for a bit of an upset.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm saying. Either that or the Illinois derby between Western Illinois and Northern Illinois. Which, for an interstate rivalry should be a fun one.
Western Michigan, Wisconsin as well, if you want another team taking on a Power 4 team, with obviously Wisconsin in the Big Ten. That is an interesting one. I know you mentioned Ohio State as their, number 2 ranked as it stands. So, I personally, obviously, I'm looking forward to watching Toledo. Go back to our predictions for the MAC. Oh, went a little bit too far. Egg, Garrett, and Sam, you all went with Miami, Ohio. So that'd be an interesting one to see again, see how that gets started. While Toledo was mine. I was going to say Fletch and Nick's. Then mine and Nick's prediction. So I'm looking forward to seeing.
Hang on, who hasn't predicted the MAC then?
Egg. Oh, 5 of us, 5 predictions. Egg, Gary, Sam. On Miami, Ohio.
All on Miami.
That was the one where I put up the wrong Ohio. I actually put Ohio University's logo, and then I had to go and change it on like 9 different graphics as well. Pain in the backside. But those were our MAC predictions. Egg, you took the Mountain West this year because of your love for Boise State.
Yeah, I've also got an FCS game as well because I feel like I'm representing FCS. So Boise State played Georgia and Southern. I'm hoping that we manage to survive that. If not, our coach should be fired instantly for putting on a guy who's a walk-on instead of our 5-star transfer portal recruit. I'm not going to keep going on about it every week, but
no, not much. No,
just annoys me. My game of the week in the Mountain. Maybe a little bit. Yeah, my game of the week in the Mountain West is UCLA against Hawai'i. UCLA have lost quite a lot of players. Hawaii looked pretty good against Delaware State. There's not a lot going on in the Mountain West, really. In non-con, it's kind of one of those conferences where they kind of just beat up on each other during the conference season. So that's kind of my standout one. My FCS game, obviously, not New Hampshire, who are playing UCF. It's Youngstown State against Villanova at 11 p.m. on Thursday night. Both teams are ranked. And Villanova are tipped to go to the national championship.
So I want to throw this out there. Gary, before you go, I know you need to run. ACC games. Any ACC games on your list this week? And I'll run us back
obviously
on that.
Obviously the Clemson game. Clemson game's obviously high up there. And the Miami-Florida game is going to be one I'll be keeping an eye on. The NC State one, I think, is also an interesting one. A sneaky suspicion they may or may not be sort of worthwhile keeping an eye on. So there's a few of them out there, but mostly the Clemson, just to see how close Clemson can run it.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, it's a big game for Clemson. It's a big game for the ACC. It's a big game for almost, I suppose, from an ACC conference perspective, we need Clemson to actually give them a good run for their money and keep it close, because FSU didn't exactly set the world alight week 0, did they?
And before, just the last one, do you see a FSU climbing back to 1-1, getting a rebound, kicking the living crap a little bit out of Boston College, maybe?
The fact it's back home, the fact that they should be licking their wounds and they should be feeling a little aggrieved after what happened. Yes, they had a wonderful trip, and yes, it's a trip of a lifetime, and yada, 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 yada. But they still went out there and didn't really perform up to expectations. I expect and I hope for a bounce back sort of performance. One to get back to 1-1.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate you, Gary. Thank you for jumping back in when you could.
Take it easy. That's a lovely sweater you're wearing there.
It really is. It really is. Found it in Dublin.
It's not a cagoule.
It's a random with a random pack of Haribo in it.
Yeah, but I found it. Just found it.
Oh, just amazing. All right, boys, take it easy. Good to speak to you.
See you later.
Bye.
So really quickly back onto the Mountain West. So everybody went with Boise State, apart from one guy in myself who went with Fresno. And I feel a little bit bad now because I know now, well, with who Fresno State are playing in week 1, because this will take us through to the Big Ten, I think. So, gone through was now. We'll go into the Big Ten in a second. But with who Fresno State are playing this weekend, I seem to get I got some good interactions with Fresno State fans when they saw me pick Fresno over Boise State, and Fresno State fans were like, Fletch knows what he's talking about. And I'm like, I'm glad you think so. So I'm very, very much looking forward to watching. You've got Boise State this weekend against Georgia Southern. That is a game that has relevance to our predictions. But then Fresno State, Michigan as well could be an interesting one. Because if Fresno State can hang in there, make it a close game, well, you don't know how people are going to look at Fresno State if they can hang it up there with Michigan.
This is the one that frightens me the most. I kind of know we're not going to beat Ohio State, we're not going to beat Oregon, we're not going to beat Texas. This is the one on the schedule that kind of has me concerned the most, because it is the first game. It's obviously the first time Jerome has been left. You know, obviously he stepped in last season, but he's now got to call the shots on his own. It's a different team. The offense has a lot of question marks over it, so I'm kind of the mindset that if we just survive and advance a bit like SMU, I would be more than happy. I'm also slightly happy as well that it's at the big house and we're not travelling to Fresno, because I think that would have been a completely different ball game, so to speak. Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens. I don't think we're kind of coming into the season with as much pressure as FSU. I think everybody already knows that we're going to be CAC. So I'm kind of the mindset that if what happens, happens in this game, and take the dub and then move on.
So on to the Big Ten. Obviously, on Thursday night, you've got Minnesota who play North Carolina. You've got Illinois taking on Eastern Illinois. We've mentioned Michigan taking on Fresno State. We have mentioned Ohio State taking on the mighty Akron Zips. We have mentioned Northwestern taking on Miami, Ohio. And then Oregon, Idaho. I am quite interested because, again, you and I, between us, we'll kind of half cover the Big Ten each, given that we both support the same team in the Big Ten. I don't know about you. I'm looking forward to seeing Oregon, Idaho, and just seeing how Oregon gets started, considering they're third ranked in the AP polls, one behind it, Ohio State, and they are largely tipped to be, if anyone's going to challenge Ohio State, it's going to be Oregon. I want to see how they get started.
I don't think Idaho's going to pose too much of a test for them, but yeah, I'm also the same. I'm kind of interested to see what they bring to the table. It's going to go one or two ways. They're either going to hit the ground running and they're going to be the biggest competition to Ohio State, or they're going to kind of maybe flounder a little bit. Again, they've kind of got a lot of pressure on them as well, haven't they, really? A lot of NIL money. They've been spoken about as a potential national championship contender, so that's the team I'm really interested to see what they do. They should handle Idaho relatively easily, to be honest. They're not a great FCS team, but I think that they're probably. I could see Oregon kind of going unbeaten as well.
Yeah. So another game that I'm looking forward to in the Big Ten, and I have it on my list of I broke down on Twitter the other day a list of games I will probably watch, and it's the only game on at the time, but it's one that I'm definitely going to make sure I'm available to watch, is the USC LSU one. That excites me, but also similar to Oregon, I want to see how USC walk in. They take on a team like LSU. Do they walk in and say, "Listen, we're making a statement. Big Ten, we're here"? And can they take that? How badly can they take that game to LSU?
I don't think USC are going to be as bad as some people are thinking, but LSU are they're kind of going under the radar a little bit as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they both kind of move on from their quarterbacks that have now gone on to the NFL. It could be a game that's appalling. It could be a game that's high scoring. So I'm interested. I think USC, you probably are in the same boat as us and FSU a little bit, and I think LSU kind of are a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see because LSU have kind of gone under the radar quite a lot in the SEC. Not a lot of people are talking about them, and you never really know. They weren't really spoken about a few years ago, and then obviously went on and won the national title. So it's going to be interesting. The game there's two games I'm very interested in seeing for very different reasons in the Big Ten. One is, as I said, Minnesota against North Carolina. Both got new quarterbacks again. Max Brosmer has moved up from FCS to Minnesota from New Hampshire. He is legit. He's last 2 years he's thrown for 3,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, and only threw for 6 interceptions last season for New Hampshire. And I'm also interested to see Florida Atlantic, Michigan State. Florida Atlantic obviously moved up into a power conference last season. I don't think Michigan State are going to be as bad as people are saying as well. Obviously, we've got to go to Sparty, so Sparty being appalling would kind of please me no end. And obviously, FIU, Mr. Worldwide, are going to play Indiana. I just want to bring up the fact that Pitbull sponsors that stadium.
Yeah.
You didn't hear any of that, did you?
Sorry, I'm sweating in that thing. I had to take it off. As I mentioned a second ago, the USC LSU was going to be a little bit of a segue as we get into the SEC. Now, the obvious, again, game that has been mentioned from the SEC has been Clemson, Georgia. And we've mentioned Florida, Miami. It's going to be a very interesting game. Because, again, Miami are one of the teams hotly tipped to do well this year after the transfer portal and after the recruiting class. Miami are quite hotly tipped to do well, 19th ranked. Florida in a position where they can't afford to get off to a bad start in the SEC. Alabama against Western Kentucky, seeing KDB's, the second KDB in the world's first proper game as Alabama head coach. Going to be a very interesting one. Obviously, Texas A&M taking on Notre Dame. That's going to be a fun one. But for me, where did it go? No, I have lost it. But I wanted to add Sam's takes because Sam, being Texas, is going to talk about the SEC for us, and he's got the SBC. So Sam's game of the week is obviously Georgia Clemson, but I want to make sure he's shouting out Texas, Colorado State, and his SBC game to watch is Georgia State, Georgia Tech. While I'm at it,
there's quite a few games like that this week. Georgia Tech, Illinois versus East Illinois. There's quite a few of those non-division games, but local as you can get, sort of games where they're all packed in tight to start with. So
yeah,
or those it's those games where I mean, I know for us 3 hours is a long way to travel to go and watch a sports event, but when you think how vast it is, Illinois versus East Illinois, that's a local derby. So you probably get some traveling fans, and it just improves the atmosphere for the first game of the season. It's always fun to get those going.
There's a reason that a lot of statewide governments are trying to make sure colleges play each other in the state constantly. There's a reason why North Carolina have done it and tried to make sure that North Carolina teams are playing each other at some point in the season because of those things that you've just said, that how great it is for the local economy, etc. So that's a great point there, actually, that you make, that these local derbies are great for many reasons.
Yeah, I mean, not just at the start of the season. It I mean, the start of the season's one of those. Everyone's eager for football. Everyone's eager for football anyway. But it's a shame that there are not more in the actual schedule.
Yeah.
I realise it's you could have that. You could have that little Ohio sort of bucket and have even if it's that little Ohio inside tournament sort of thing with all the and it's just it's nice to, like you said, it's nice to have those local teams playing each other and have the economy and have all the people in and around there interested.
Yeah. And with the SEC SBC connection by Sam, who said Georgia State, Georgia Tech, we're going to slip into the SBC, but I've got a better segue. There is an SEC SBC game this weekend, and that is with the mighty potential SBC winners, according to Nick. Old Dominion take on the South Carolina Gamecocks. And that gets us nicely into the SBC. The Sunbelt. I'll let that page just load. Any games other than Georgia State, Georgia Tech, which obviously is a derby game, but also I'm very, very eager to see how Georgia Tech respond after last week's win and the high that they are probably on. Are there any other games in the SBC standing out for you guys, other than obviously Old Dominion for you, Nick?
Well. No, I'm all Old Dominion in the SBC. I can't apply anybody out.
No, I didn't think you could.
There's too many games to be watching. I can't be watching everybody.
You can't.
I'll just stick with Old Dominion.
You can't separate Nick and his Old Dominion. You just can't do it.
No.
You and I, Egg. Our prediction for the SBC: App State are playing East Tennessee State. It's a win for App State, surely.
Yep, at the Kid Brewer Stadium.
Yes. And where else? Where have they bloody gone now? Texas State take on Lamar. They take on Lamar. Is it? That would be the old singer, wouldn't it?
I was going to say, is he singing?
Where'd he go? Oh crap! What was it? What was that? Oh, it's a great song.
Don't ask me. I'm not interested in Lamar.
Yeah.
Play
Troy as well.
Anyway, right? No, before I'm going to end up going down a rabbit hole there, and it's not going to be a good one. So we'll move on straight away. Texas State take on Lamar. That will obviously be a win for Texas State. Georgia Tech, Georgia State. That kind of covers where our predictions went. Finally, there's one conference technically two, but I think we'll only really cover the one today. We're missing a conference. Can anyone remember which conference we're missing?
Big 12.
Well, not. Oh, okay. Actually, to be fair, we have not got someone covering the Big 12. Oh dear.
Would you like me to do the Big 12?
I would like you to have a look at the Big 12 if we can. We've got the games up now. UCF, New Hampshire, Kansas, Lindenwood. Shout out Kansas. Well, we went two completely different ways there. Usually, I went with Kansas. Yeah, let's. Let me get our predictions up as well for the Big 12. Egg. Utah take on Southern Utah.
Yep.
Gary and I, our went with Kansas to take on, who were taking on Lindenwood. I thought that was the AAC logo then. It's not, thankfully. It is Arizona. Who were going to take on New Mexico. That was Nick, that was your prediction. And finally, Kansas State, who Sam chose to take on UT Martin. Any other games sticking out to you?
No.
UNLV against Houston. UNLV were pretty good last year, so I'm kind of interested to see if they progressed a little bit. Houston, I think, are going to finish bottom, so I'm interested more to see what UNLV bring to the table. They'll come in surprise package. The only other one I'm interested to see is South Dakota State against Oklahoma State. Again, that's another banana skin for Oklahoma. Two coaches that, if they lose, are going to be on an even hotter seat is going to be Cincinnati and Baylor. They play Wilton State, who I spoke about earlier, and Towson, who I don't know anything about. So if those guys lose, they're both like on a very, very hot seat already. So it could be gone before Christmas.
Get an early look at Heisman running back contender Ollie Gordon as well in that one. That should be a fun game to watch. And one of the players. I've not kept a good track today of players to watch and Sam's list. I am so sorry, Sam, genuinely, that I haven't kept on top of that for you. But Ollie Gordon is one of those that we've said to watch out for this year, as he could potentially be up for a Heisman. So keep an eye out for that OSU game for him. Finally, the best conference of them all, lads. Come on. Conference USA. See, do you know what? The Conference USA and Egg was just like, no, I'm gone. Not doing this anymore. Can't do Conference USA. Conference USA, that was my conference that I chose. And obviously, I want to go with the mighty Kennesaw State, the best college football team in the state of Georgia, taking on UTSA. But actually, let me get the rest of the Conference USA. And this is our last bit before we start to move on and get done. So, Egg's Western Kentucky and Gary's Western Kentucky take on Alabama. It's going to be a great start for them. The Jacksonville State Gamecocks, Nick, stop laughing, take on Coastal Carolina. And finally, Liberty, who yourself and Sam went with, take on Campbell. That's the Camel team. That's the Camel team that we looked at the other week.
Right.
In the FCS. Oh, what do they call it? Campbell something Camel. Campbell fighting camels. Is the start for Liberty.
Camels.
In terms of games that I genuinely think would be interesting to watch, New Mexico State, as they look to bounce back from this weekend and take on Southeast Missouri. I have pinned my colours to the mast here and gone with Kennesaw State just because of the new boys and my friends in Georgia right now. So I'm going to get into bringing me back something Kennesaw State related. So why not? I'm interested to see Florida International or UTEP as they take on Indiana and Nebraska, respectively. They're taking on the big boys. Those should be fun. Maybe not for Conference USA teams.
Would you like a stat?
I would love a stat. You know me.
On Saturday, the 31st of August, Bucknell play at Navy. Do you know when the last meeting between Bucknell and Navy was?
I'm going to go with something like the early 1900s, like 1904 or something.
November the 14th, 1925. Navy won 13-7.
Bloody hell.
And another weird one, just sticking out of me, Temple at Oklahoma, which I said is my AAC game of the week. The last time these two teams met was November the 21st, 1942. Temple won 14-7. So, there you go.
Okay.
Doesn't come round very often, those games.
Okay, so I know Egg is dipped. Hey! Did not mean to make that pun, but I'll take it. I'll take the charity. Our Egg has dipped. But I'm trying to think of a game that's going to be classic. Like Clemson, Georgia is too obvious to call and make it a really interesting one for us to do a bit of a pick-em on this week.
Well, should we do LSU USC then?
LSU USC can do. let me just so let me get LSU USC up on the tablet as well, actually, while I'm at it. Because I've got a tablet now while I do this, because I'm so fancy. Where have they gone? Right. There they are. Be nice if it loaded, though. There we go. Right. There we go. There we go. There we go. So, you and I, because it's just us at this moment in time, are going to... We picked our game, our non-obvious game of the week in USC LSU. So, I'll read you a couple of the betting stats like we did for FSU Georgia Tech last week.
Mm-hmm.
The spread is -4 for LSU. The total, your over-under, is 64.5. So if you think 56 at the week on Saturday was a lot, 64.5. And USC... so LSU are favoured -155, which means nothing to me. So I will check it on Bet365. I forgot ESPN was going to show me US odds. That mean, again, nothing to me. So let me just get the UK odds off the app here. Nope, don't want futures. NCAA, game lines. Don't know why I'm commentating what's on my screen to you. Text off me now. Yeah, so, okay, according to here, the spread is -4.5 for LSU in LSU's favour. The over-under is 64.5, and the money line is LSU a 1-2, USC a 33-20. Now, which one would you like us to have a bit of a pick 'em on? We'll obviously do the total, the over-under, but then we'll go money line or spread for this one.
We'll go. Let's go spread.
Go spread. Okay.
Let's go spread.
So LSU -4.5 or USC +4.5. Who are you taking this week?
I will take. You know what? I'm going to take LSU.
LSU on the -4.5. Let me note that down here. I'll go against the grain. I say go against the grain. It's just you that I'm going against. I'll go with the USC +4.5. Because why not? What's the fun in both of us being wrong or both of us being right? And I'm going to do what you should have done at the weekend. And I'm taking the over.
Hang on a minute. You say what I should have done at the weekend.
Should have taken the over.
I was right taking the under.
In the end,
it did finish under.
In the end, yeah. But at the start, you debated it. So I'm taking the over on this one.
Oh, I was going to take the over all week, and then at the very last second, I decided to take the under. Proves I was right.
So
I mean, I didn't get anything else right, but I at least got that right. I changed my mind at the very last minute because of my gut, and the big gut said, "You know what? You're right." So
okay, so are you happy with them with taking the under, seeing as you were right on the under in the end?
Yeah, I'm gonna take LSU to cover the spread. I'm gonna take the under, and I'm gonna take LSU to win.
No problem. Okay.
And that will be my bet this week.
So with that in mind, I think it's time to call it a day. Thank you, Egg. Thank you, Garrett, and thank you, Nick, for joining me this week. Everybody who's listening, go have a weekend. Go and enjoy your football. Tweet us at the AAW Network. Tweet Nick at Nick Crosgrove UK. Tweet me at Lions Guy Fletch. Tweet Egg at It's Egg actually. And tweet Gary a link in the bio because I'm not going through his like elongated username. Can't be asked. It's a lot of R's and a lot of O's.
Groovy.
Have a great weekend. Enjoy football. It's back. It's beautiful. She's electric. Nah, I'm going to leave it there. I'm not... just wait for your Sunday morning call. There we go. There's the last one. And,
Oh!
There it is. There's the button.